Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. Sorry for the slight delay in starting. We just had some technical difficulties. But I will now call this meeting of Student Senate to order. Let me get our agenda screen shared really quickly. So we will forego the Pledge of Allegiance over Zoom. And then for our land acknowledgement, I want to begin our Student Senate meeting taking place on Thursday, October 1st, 2020 with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is the home of 4 federally recognized Native nations, the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation for this institution was, and still is, stolen land acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. With that, we will now turn into first roll call. Maggie is going to lead us through that.
Good evening, everyone. Very happy to see you all tonight. Atchison.
Here.
Bain.
Here.
Booz.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Bruce. Thank you. Sorry, my spreadsheet was being funky. Brummet is excused. Bruna. Burke. Thank you. Carlson.
Here.
Carr. Clements.
Here.
Colburn.
Here.
Croslow. Thank you. De Santiago. Diaz de Leon.
Here.
Dillavu.
Here.
Doc.
Here.
Fox. Frederick. Thank you. Garrett. Glasscock.
Here.
Grills.
Here.
Grillmus.
Here.
Hamlin.
Here.
Harmon.
Here.
Hurd is here. Hernandez.
Here.
Hutchings.
Here.
Jambunathan.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Manners. McKee. Oh, I'm sorry, I got off one. I skipped Levi, my bad.
I'm here.
Sorry about that, Senator Levi. McVeigh.
Here.
Muthu Kumar. Thank you. Knoll.
Here.
Norwood. Nunning.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Panikatu.
Here.
Porter's excused. Richenberg.
Here.
Rodriguez. Thank you. Rossi. Shunjay.
Here.
Oh, thank you, Senator Rossi. Shunjay.
Here.
Snyder Ben.
Here.
Snyder Blaine.
Here.
Vance.
Here.
Vogelmore.
Here.
Wallace.
Here.
Ward. Thank you. Wells.
Here.
Here.
Wilcox.
Here.
Willis.
Here.
Windholtz.
Here.
Okay, and let me go back and plug in a few folks who I missed in the chat. Yep. All right, cool. With that, we have 47 senators present, 4 excused, and 5 absences. I think that that is the most we've ever had. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maggie, for taking care of that for us. With that, we'll now move into our first open period. Our first open period speaker for tonight is Jessica Henolt. She's the K-State Care Office Prevention Specialist. Jessica, I'll turn it over to you. You have 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Jessica Henolt, and I have the honor of serving as K-State's Sexual and Relationship Violence Prevention Specialist within the Center for Advocacy, Response, and Education, also known as CARE. CARE provides services to any K-State student, staff, faculty, or administrator who has experienced sexual, domestic, or dating violence, stalking, or harassment. Individuals who grew up in unhealthy or unsafe living environments, witnessed childhood abuse, or witnessed a loved one experience violence are also encouraged to seek care resources. Most importantly, all of our services are free, voluntary, and confidential. Survivor advocates are available to provide a wide variety of services to victims and survivors. This includes informing the survivor of what their rights are, engaging in crisis intervention, providing medical and legal advocacy, explaining what the reporting options are, helping a survivor create a safety plan, working with the Office of Student Life to provide academic remedies, and additional information and referral. CARE also provides a wide variety of trainings and workshops. Some of these topics include, but are not limited to, our CARE 101 presentation, Consent 101, the realities of sexual and interpersonal violence on K-State's campus, Wildcats Make a Pact, which I will touch on near the end of this, the impacts of trauma, boundaries and self-care, healthy relationships, and sexual harassment. We also take part in a wide variety of awareness months. For example, January is Stalking Awareness Month, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So throughout each month, we offer a wide variety of content and opportunities for involvement to promote these various topics. So now I want to discuss how we can use our privileges and positionality to move forward with communal response for the betterment of all college students by reducing and preventing violence from occurring in the first place. Violence impacts every individual, social network, communities, norms and values, and institutional, state, and federal policies and procedures. We need to view violence prevention as a communal effort. Research shows that ending violence on college campuses is not possible without their active and continuous commitment from every student, staff, faculty, and administrator. We must recognize the privileges we hold as leaders and change makers. It is our responsibility to use our critical thinking abilities, our leadership skills, our education, and voices to demand accountability and change. On a macro level, we need to acknowledge how community, social norms, and media impacts the culture of consent on college campuses. This includes calling out rape myths, sexist language, harmful sex education curriculum, and inappropriate media representation that contributes to the degradation of humans, stripping them of their autonomy, freedom of choice, and livelihood. We need to call attention to the intersections of violence. Violence does not occur in a vacuum. It is interwoven with other forms of oppression, discrimination, and an abuse of power. Research, and more importantly, history, continues to show that historically oppressed populations experience the highest rates of violence and receive the least amount of justice. We cannot end violence on campus if we fail to call attention to this or fail to challenge the campus and community to do better. When focusing on a micro level, there were recent changes to K-State's Policy and Procedure Manual 3010, and they were made to adhere to the new federal Title IX regulations. These changes impact every Wildcat, and it is important to understand these changes and identify not only the potential strengths, but also complications and concerns that come with it. Finally, on an individual level, we need to engage in lifelong learning and professional development opportunities. Take part in one of CARE's trainings. Our most popular one is Wildcats Make a Pact, our 50-minute bystander intervention training that teaches participants how to safely intervene if they see violence, victimization, or perpetration. There are many opportunities for involvement. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we have developed 6 initiatives that align with our department mission in honor of this Awareness Month. These include educating the community on the realities and prevalence of domestic and interpersonal violence, debunking the myths and misconceptions of interpersonal violence, educating the community on how one's power, positionality, and privileges influences interpersonal violence, amplify and uplift the voices of victims and survivors, particularly those who come from historically oppressed populations, share campus and community resources for victims and survivors, and challenge the Wildcat community to come together to eradicate interpersonal violence on college campuses, therefore making campus safer, more equitable, and accessible for all. In partnership with Safe Zone, CARE is excited to be hosting an advanced Safe Zone training every Friday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. throughout the month of October, relating to different topics on interpersonal violence. These live sessions will be recorded and shared for people to view at a later date if they are unable to attend. CARE has officially launched a podcast series with a new episode dropping every Thursday at 1 p.m. October's podcast theme centers around a mindfulness meditation workshop series. Each episode is 30 minutes long and can be found on Spotify. I encourage you all to check it out and take some time for yourself. You can interact with CARE on our social media by sharing our resources, services, and events. And finally, you can continue supporting and amplifying CARE's purpose, mission, and voice. As students, you have more privileges and protections as it relates to freedom of speech. I encourage you to use these added protections to amplify the voices of those who have limited protections. If we come together, we can use our various privileges for good. I want to thank you for allowing me to attend tonight's meeting and sharing with you all. At this time, if there are any questions or comments, I am happy to address them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica, for coming in tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Does anyone have any questions for our speaker tonight? If you have a question, please just indicate so in the chat and I'll be happy to call on you. Speaker Pro Tem Billman asked, what is the podcast called?
It is a pretty complex title, the CARE Podcast. We tried keeping it nice and easy. You know, we're trying to kind of gear towards more of the Gen Z, but it can be found on Spotify.
And then next up, Senator Levi, it looks like you have the question, so you have the floor.
Hi. Thank you for that presentation. That was very informative. I was just wondering, and I assume yes, but is all of this information easily accessible on like your website with K-State?
Yes, it is. So actually today, our survivor advocate, Stephanie Ferran, was editing our CARE page to add the podcast link. So that way people can just visit our CARE website to view the podcast. We are currently working to figure out how to archive the Safe Zone trainings. It's a little more difficult considering it is such a large Zoom video. However, we have been dabbling into the idea of creating a YouTube account so that way we can archive our videos there. But if anyone is interested in receiving these videos throughout the month of October, please feel free to email me and I will happily make sure that I get those passed along to you.
Are there any other questions for our speaker at this time? Chair Booz, you have the floor.
Yeah, again, thank you for coming in. You mentioned that the CARE podcast was available on Spotify. If somebody didn't happen to have a Spotify account, is there a way to view that, or is it a Spotify exclusive?
It is not Spotify exclusive. I will ask our graduate research assistant because she is the one who created the account and she has linked it to 3 different platforms. And so what I'll do is I will connect with her, I will get the information, and then I will send it along to Maggie and Nathan, and then y'all can spread it out.
Okay, this sounds good, thank you.
I just added some more information in the chat. This is Clara speaking, sorry, from the CARE office.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Clara. I think that's super helpful. Are there any other questions from any senators or anyone else? Seeing none, thank you so much again, Jessica and Clara. Yeah, I know you're on the call. We really appreciate the two of you taking the time to come and just inform us about your office. I think it's always really useful that when we're spreading that word to students and everything. So thank you so much for joining us on the call this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us and for all the hard work that y'all are doing. I hope you have wonderful nights. And if there is anything myself, Clara, or the CARE office can do to either support you as students or as an entity, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Awesome. If we could get like the little applause reaction gifs for our speaker, I always think it's fun when we do that right now. Thank you all again so much for coming.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yeah. With that, are there any further speakers for our first open period tonight? Seeing none, we'll now move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? They were distributed last Friday. Moved by Chair Booz and seconded by Chair Brown. Are there any objections to that? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved. We'll now move into announcements for the week, and I'm screen share the agenda again. So scrolling down to our announcements. First off, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is actually currently gathering data for a demographic survey of Student Governing Association, just to gain a snapshot of who's in SGA right now. This is all totally anonymous, and it only takes about 3 minutes to fill out on this Google form. That link is on the agenda right now, and I would highly encourage everyone, no matter what your position is in SGA, whether you're in cabinet, the legislative branch, even the judicial branch, and we want to know, basically just everyone kind of get a sense of who's in student government right now at this time. This will kind of like impact some of the decisions and outreach that DEI does later in the year. Again, it's 2 to 3 minutes. I'd encourage you to go on and fill it out right now. You could probably be done by the time I'm done with the announcements. Our next announcement for the night is that the Privilege Fee Committee actually currently has 2 open spots for student senators who wish to serve on the committee. If you're interested in changing from your current committee, or if you're a senator who currently does not have an assigned committee, you are welcome to fill out the Google form. So I want to be really clear, like if you're on any committee right now, we will happily consider anyone due to just like the way privilege fee works a bit differently from every other committee. We'd really prefer for that one to be full faster right now. Please fill out that Google form. I don't think the link on the agenda is working right now, but it is currently in the chat. Chair Brown just sent it, and it's just a couple short essay questions. If you are like interested in serving on the Privilege Fee Committee, we definitely encourage you to take the time to do that. Next, and I think there'll be some more information on this later tonight, but again, like last week, we're still partnering with the Student Athletics Advisory Committee. So you can either donate canned goods, if you just want to stop by the legislative branch office in Union 117, either with cash or canned goods, we would be happy to take your donation from you. Next up is proxies for the night. If you're going to be absent from a student senate meeting, please remember to fill out that link at like any time before Wednesday at 7 p.m. preferably. But our proxies for tonight are Diaz de Leon for Brummett, Dillavu for Porter, and some additional ones that I received today are grills for McKee, and then I have one more, and I don't have it in front of me right now. I'm sorry. I think Maggie's getting it pulled up. Carlson for Gallardo. Yep, that's what it is. Awesome. Thank you all so much for helping me with that. And then our next announcement is that the SGA Member of the Week is Senator and Committee Chair Natalia Rodriguez, for her diligence and all the research that she put into in preparing the SGA Land Acknowledgement Bill. Last week was the first time that we ever had it at a meeting, so we appreciate all the work that Natalia did in helping create this new Senate process. An additional thank you to all of the members of the DEI committee. I know you all contributed and gave lots of feedback as it worked through that process. So if we can get claps for them right now from your little reaction GIFs. Thanks so much for all the work that you guys did. I think that's super cool. And then finally, our quote of the week this week is "Don't raise your voice, improve your argument." And that's by Desmond Tutu. With that, we will now move into commendations for the week. Can I get a motion to consider Resolution 23? Moved by Caucus Leader Phillips, seconded by Caucus Leader Carlson. With that, I'm actually the author of Resolution 23. So this is a commendation to Dean Lori Getch by myself, whereas Lori Getch has served as the Dean of the K-State Library since August of 2004, whereas before coming to K-State, Getch served as Director of Public Services Division at the University of Maryland's Library, Head of Reference Services and Associate Professor at the University of Tennessee, Women's Studies Bibliographer, Librarian, and Head Librarian for Information Reference at Michigan State, an Assistant Reference Librarian at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Whereas as a researcher, Getch's published work covers a range of topics, including the importance of library safety and security, the impact of librarians on students, faculty, staff, and the accomplishment of the library's missions, as well as the status of women in librarian positions in relevance to sex discrimination in employment. Whereas among Getch's many honors are receiving a national/international diversity in the curriculum grant, Michigan State University Library's Distinguished Librarian Award, and selection of the Association of College and Research Libraries/Harvard Leadership Institute in 2000. Whereas since the Hale Library fire in May of 2018, Getch was tasked with overseeing the recovery process and then leading the planning and renovation to turn Hale into a next generation library. And whereas on September 21st, 2020, Dean Getch announced her retirement beginning on May 28th, 2021. Be it resolved that the Kansas State University Student Governing Association congratulates Dean Getch on her retirement and wishes her all the best for her future. Her dedication, hard work, and kindness will be greatly missed by the students, faculty, and administration at KSU. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the Dean of K-State Libraries, Lori Getch, K-State Library Student Ambassadors President Cassie Weefald, Provost Charles Tabor, and University President Richard Myers. Are there any questions or corrections about this commendation? Okay, sorry, I heard this in the background, but Speaker Pro Tem Billman asked to be added as an author to this resolution. Yes, we can do that, Maggie, very easily. Are there any other questions or corrections? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion to unanimously approve Resolution 23. Is there a motion to approve this? Chair Booz moved it, seconded by Senator Croslow. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 23 will stand approved. Next up, we have another commendation, Resolution 24. Can I get a motion to consider this one? If I can get a so moved in the chat. Moved by Caucus Leader Diaz de Leon, seconded by Senator Croslow. With that, this is another one by me. So Resolution 24, commendation of Dr. Angela Park by Nathan Bothwell. Whereas Dr. Angela Youngshin Park currently serves as an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science, whereas Dr. Park's research focuses on local governance and performance management, especially in the context of urban sustainability and environmental justice issues. Whereas in 2018, Dr. Park was recognized as a Stats Emerging Scholar selected by the Network of Schools of Public Policy, Affairs, and Administration. Whereas Dr. Park's dissertation, Beyond Adoption, the Influence of Local Institutional Arrangements on Sustainability Policy Implementation and Management, was awarded the prestigious 2020 Leonard D. White Award for the best doctoral dissertation in the field of public administration. And whereas this award is presented at the annual meeting of the American Political Science Association, a major professional society for individuals engaged in the study of politics and government. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association congratulates Dr. Park on a recent accomplishment. KSU SGA recognizes the incredible contributions that Dr. Park has made to the fields of public administration and political science. Section 2, upon passage by Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Assistant Professor of Political Science, Dr. Angela Youngshin Park, Political Science Department Head Sam Bell, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences Amit Chakrabarty, Provost Charles Tabor, and University President Richard B. Myers. Are there any questions or corrections on Resolution 24?
I'm not sure we need any of the acronyms in the whereas clauses.
Okay, we can strike those or whatever. I can do that.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or corrections? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 24? Moved by Chair Colburn, moved by Chair Colburn. Can I get a second? Seconded by Atchison. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 24 will be approved. Next up is approval of appointments with Resolution 25. Can I get a motion to consider Resolution 25? Moved by Caucus Leader Phillips. Can I get a second? Seconded by Caucus Leader Carlson. With that, will the author of Resolution 25 please come forward?
Yep. Hello, everyone. Resolution 2021-25, approval of new student senators by Andrew Booz. And that should really be Senate Operations Committee, by the way. Whereas Alex Brown, Logan Cox, and Chris Walker have resigned from the position of student senator for the College of Agriculture. And whereas Parker Volgamore and J.W. Wells have the next highest vote totals of eligible and willing candidates in the 2020 SGA general election for the College of Agriculture student senator. We resolve that the following individuals be approved as student senators for the College of Agriculture: Parker Volgamore and J.W. Wells.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author of this resolution? Caucus Leader Atchison.
Chris's last name is Wagner, just for the record.
We can get that fixed.
Okay. I may have had that on my spreadsheet incorrectly. So yeah, sorry about that.
And then it looks like Chair Colburn, you also have a question.
I just have one. What is this for filling that third open seat?
Yeah, the third open seat I will need to contact the college council for, because these two individuals were write-ins, and so there were no other write-ins that accepted the third seat.
Are there any other questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion to approve Resolution 25. Is there a motion to approve it? Moved by Senator Delavu, seconded by Senator Levi. Are there any objections to approving Resolution 25? Seeing none, Parker and JW, if you both would like to unmute your camera and video right now, we will go ahead and get you sworn in. If the two of you just want to raise your right hand, and if at the end you'll say, "I do." So, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of student senator and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association.
I do.
I do.
Awesome. Congratulations to the two of you. We are so excited to have the both of you joining us in Student Senate for the year. So we can get some applause for the two of them as well. Awesome to have you, Senators Volgamore and Senator Wells.
Thank you.
With that,
Happy to be here.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Oh, happy to be here.
Awesome. With that, we'll now continue on with our agenda for the evening. So next up on our agenda, we will actually now move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report at this time? Chair Rodriguez, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. As Speaker Bothwold mentioned a little bit ago, we are doing the demographic survey again this year, so please fill it out. It only takes like 3 minutes, not that hard. And then India, we're starting to plan outreach for this term. So if you're interested in being part of that, or if you would like to give us some ideas, just let me know, and I can send you the link for a Zoom meeting this Monday at 6:45 p.m. and you can be part of that conversation as well. Thank you, guys.
Are there any questions for Chair Rodriguez about the DEI committee? Seeing none, thanks a bunch, Natalia. Are there any further committee chairs who would like to give a report? Seeing none, we will now move into directors' reports. Are there any directors who would like to give a report?
Hi everyone. Just a super quick update. I actually filled out my weekly schedule and posted it to our office door this afternoon. When I ran, I offered to be in my office for at least 2 hours a week, just in case anybody wanted to come in and talk about anything, if they had any questions, anything like that. But I actually counted up that I'm in my office 17 hours a week. So literally anytime I'm in here, anybody is so welcome to swing by and say hi. If you want to work on a project, if you have any questions, I am always available. I also posted my phone number and email address to the door. So if I'm out and you have questions, again, I'm available through that. We also have our handy dandy candy bowl. So come in and get some candy. Thanks, everyone.
Are there any questions for Speaker Pro Tempore Billman? Chair Booz.
Yeah, this year there might actually be quite a few more people who haven't been in the union or CSI yet. Could you explain how to get there when you walk in?
Oh yeah, thank you so much for that question, Chair Booz. So we are on the main floor of the union, so where Chick-fil-A is and all that. So when you walk in through Bosco Plaza, once you get to by Redina's, you're gonna take a left, and then you'll see the CSI main desk, and then you'll take a right and walk through some double glass doors. And we are on the far south wall of the CSI offices, and Nathan and I's office is the third one. It's Union 117, if that helps. I'm not really great at giving directions, but I hope that helped.
Are there any further questions for Speaker Pro Tem Billman? Seeing none, are there any further directors who would like to give a report? Maggie has one more thing, hold on.
I'm so sorry. Please fill out the Senate shout out form. I'll send the link in the chat.
Now, are there any other directors who'd like to give a report?
Nathan, would you like to do this now?
Yeah, I was waiting to see if there was anyone else, since it looks like there's not. Kind of right now, we're gonna move into a short little joint report between myself, President Whitmer, and Chair Brown. As you all have known for a couple weeks, as we've shared, we are going through a new privilege fee process right now. We're doing the insufficient funds clause, which essentially means that we're calling back funds of all the different privilege fee entities. Give me just a moment, and I'm going to get a presentation screen shared right now. This is the presentation that was presented to the Privilege Fee Committee just at 5:30 p.m., so right before this meeting. We just covered it. It's pretty long. We're going to try to go through it much quicker right now, but you all should have received the legislation associated with this for the updated privilege fee budget just this afternoon. This is your chance to ask questions, dig in. This is a pretty intense process, and we want to make sure that you have more than enough times to ask any questions that you may have. Tel, are you free to get started with the presentation?
Let's do it. So, just to give everybody context to why this process began, and to give you an idea of what what our situation is like. So we were expecting a decrease in enrollment. Those numbers came out today, actually. Obviously, shifting to online courses this semester and projecting shifts to more online courses next semester has given us projections of pretty severe, actually very severe deficits. And initially we were told about projections about $2 to $3 million, but it looks like it's going to be a lot greater than what we were initially projecting. And so we've had to go back to the drawing board several times between the three of us, Speaker Bothwell, Chair Brown, and I, and have had to put together this rough draft of a budget, requiring very, very tough calls. But we're going to walk you through it, and you obviously have the legislation in front of you, and so I encourage you to follow along. We're going to just walk through that legislation. But this is the greatest privilege fee deficit that we've had in the history of the campus privilege fee. So to say that this is abnormal or bad is an understatement. So the process, again, if you're familiar with what we did last spring, if you're not, we have an insufficient funds collection process requiring myself, the Speaker of the Senate, and the Privilege Fee Chair to review impact statements we take in from entity directors and to give a recommended budget to the Privilege Fee Committee to review. And upon the committee's review, it goes to the Student Senate and is debated and voted on and reviewed there as well. So I already talked about our initial numbers have been far exceeded thanks to new and additional information. Two our priorities that we were looking at when creating this budget have been maintaining student employment, and preserving the student health and well-being of our students. And so we grouped 3 tiers based on these priorities: values to students, impacts to students. Tier 1 with a 1%, 3%, 5% impact statements we asked for. Tier 2 with 5%, 10%, 20% impact statements. And Tier 3 accounting for 20%, 40%, and 60% impact statements that we received.
Yeah, so I can take it over from here. We're actually going to move into what we ended up recommending for a lot of these different entities and what the new budget will look like. We have like a different slide for every entity, so this might take a short little while, but we really ask that you pay attention and ask any questions that you have at the end, again, just because this is so critical and so important. So to start off with, for student health, or LaFine, our initial recommendation was a 1% decrease. We feel that they're super critical to campus right now, but that would result in a reduction in student worker positions and student worker hours. After we learned that potential decreases might be even higher, LaFine agreed to take an additional $160,000 decrease that they would cover through funds that they have set aside in their reserves. Additionally, LaFine will be receiving $500,000 in COVID relief funds to subsidize a portion of their budget, so we can also recall that amount to pay for part of the overall privilege fee budget. On counseling services, we only settled on a 1% decrease because counseling told us that would have a minimal impact on their services, if any. Moving in, another part of the privilege fee is the fine arts fee. The fine arts fee is made up of a bunch of different entities, but a really key common factor is a lot of them are performance-based, and they often have to sit in auditoriums, which is why we resulted in some pretty high cuts to these budgets, just because we feel that it would not be safe for a lot of these entities to continue holding events in the status quo with COVID. So the College of Architecture, Planning, and Design, we gave a 90% decrease because most of their funding just goes to lectures and events that have since been moved online or are not happening anymore because of COVID. McCain Auditorium, we recommended a 100% decrease for. This means that we won't be having any money go to their new online series, so students will have to pay full price for any online pre-recorded shows they wish to watch. The art department is receiving a 60% decrease because most of their money is spent on lectures and demonstrations, most of which have moved online because of COVID-19. Ebony Theater is receiving a 40%. Again, they're reducing their programming and most have moved online again. The music department, the band and orchestra in particular, this decision will actually end up resulting in the cancellation of some of their events. But again, we don't really think that in-person events are a particular priority right now because of COVID-19. And about the same thing for choral and opera. It would result in the cancellation of some of their concerts as well as limited advertising for what they do. The English department, we recommended a 40% budget decrease, which they have 4 authors come each year, but this would result in only 2 authors coming to campus to present to students. And the International Student Center, we recommended a 20% decrease, which is just a reduction in how much each student gets paid for how much they present. So it's only a $5 deduction there. The Communication Studies, Theater, and Dance departments ended up getting a 40% budget decrease. This will mean that they might have less shows or have to renegotiate some of their contracts they have with like production companies and things like that. And then part of the student organizations that we fund through on-campus and travel are paid through the fine arts fee. We are canceling that entirely at a 100% decrease. And so that'll result in a deduction of funds going to those events and travel. That will result in a total decrease of about 61% or $182,000 to the overall fine arts fee. I'm just going to keep going, Tel, just to knock this out really quickly. But so the Collegian Media Group, we recommended a 10% decrease to, and that's going to have a number of impacts on them, including reductions of a number of like services that they provide, including the yearbook, Manhattan Magazine, and the Collegian, the number of either issues or pages they print as well. This will eliminate pay for some of their staff hires and potentially even eliminate pay for some people who are currently on payroll. Wildcat Watch, we recommended a 20% decrease to their operations account, which will reduce the number of students on payroll and cause additional charges for clients on Wildcat Watch. And their equipment reserve account is being recommended a 60% decrease, so reducing the number of new equipment they can purchase this year. When we move into the student union operations, we actually recommended a 0% decrease to. They've had large losses of revenue because of COVID-19, and they're only at about 20% foot traffic of what they would be in a typical year. So even a 1% decrease would result in the loss of critical like staff positions that are necessary to maintain like the building's like cleanliness and like safety because of COVID-19. They do have a repair and replacement reserve account, which we're decreasing by 5%. And so they won't be replacing like part of one of the stages in the union. And then their reserve account, we're taking 100% back of just because it would go straight to reserves for this year. We also have a food contract termination agreement with them, which we're actually renegotiating this payment plan with university administration. So we're going to postpone this payment for 1 year, resulting in another $80,000 savings that we can return to the overall privilege fee. The Union Program Council, UPC, we're recommending a 60% decrease to their budget. This is going to be a substantial reduction in the quantity, quality, and scale of programs that they offer. But again, a lot of their programs have either moved online or involve like giveaways or large numbers of students, which is why we settled on that number. Additionally, the Campus Entertainment Fund, which funds part of what UPC does, we're recommending a 100% decrease. And instead, the performers that they bring this year will be paid through their carryover budget from last spring when we went online. The Student Design Center, we're recommending a 20% decrease. This will result in the termination of 3 student positions, but thankfully 2 of those are currently vacant at this time. KSDB, the student radio, we're recommending a 10% decrease their budget, which will result in a reduction in the number of staff hours and at least 1 paid position being terminated. And then the KSDB reserve, we're recommending a 60% decrease to because of the current account balance that they have. The Center for Student Involvement, CSI, in the union, we're recommending a 20% budget decrease. This will reduce the number of student worker hours. They'll reduce the printing services line item and a few other line items that they have. And they're also able to cover this money through some reserves and carry forwards that they have from last year. The student activity fee is another portion of the privilege fee, and it's made up of a number of different components here. Diversity Programming Committee, which is a committee run by SGA and chaired by Speaker Pro Tem Billman, we're recommending a 60% decrease to because they have a really large, like almost $150,000 reserve account right now that they can use to offset this decrease. Campus organizations, which is on-campus and travel funding committees, we're actually recommending an 80% decrease to, which will be less funding for like student organizations that we typically fund to host events and travel. Multicultural organizations, which we fund through the privilege fee, are actually already covered through like reserves for the student activity fee. So we're not decreasing them at all because it doesn't actually impact the privilege fee whatsoever, but we included it for posterity's sake. Open house, we ended up recommending 100% decrease. Typically, we give funding to different colleges for open house through our on-campus committee, but because we don't know what the spring's gonna look like, we ultimately decided to cut it all entirely. Graduate Student Council, we're recommending a 60% decrease to, because most of their money is spent on students like traveling to different events. When again, in the status quo, we feel that travel's something that should be reduced as much as possible. Academic competition teams we're reducing by 40%, and that money is, like, some of this money has already been spent already for academic competition teams this year. So this is the amount that they'll be able to cover through their reserve account. The care office, we're recommending a 5% decrease to, which is really just gonna be some less resource purchases and like purchases of handouts that they'd give this year. UFM, Community Learning Center, we're recommending a 20% decrease, which will be a reduction in funding for salaries as well as the lecture series that they typically hold. But again, those things have moved online. The student activity fee overall, it's going to be $186,000 decrease. So moving into the recreational services, we recommended a 5% decrease to the rec, which could potentially result in operating hours or student employment, again, being decreased there. Additionally, after following up with the rec, they agreed to an additional $200,000 like decrease that they were able to take due to the reduction in intramurals that aren't happening this fall semester. Both of the rec's reserve accounts, we recommended a 100% decrease to. The sports club fee, we recommended a 100% decrease to. This is because sports clubs haven't yet received their funding for this year, and it's primarily spent on traveling. And they also don't have enough money in their reserves account to really take any additional cuts, which is why we just decided to cut them entirely. Student legal services, we recommended a 5% decrease, which they're able to take due to their carryover from the spring. And then Student Governing Association ourselves, we recommended a 6% decrease, which is essentially all expendable monies that we have. So stuff like our travel, our banquet, promotional funds, etc., will all be gone. This results in a total privilege fee reduction of just over $2 million that we'll be calling back from entities, which is a 12% reduction to the overall privilege fee budget. Again, I want to stress what Tel said, that this is like the biggest, we're currently facing the biggest deficit in the history of the privilege fee. Even if we don't, even with this $2 million callback, we will still have to pull over $2 million out of our bond surplus account. And we're trying to be a little conservative on how much we take out of that account due to the fact that we don't know how long COVID's going to go on and how long we're going to feel the financial impact of COVID. So that's kind of like the gist of all the budget changes that we're recommending. Privilege fee is just starting to review those, and this bill will hopefully be introduced to all of Student Senate next week. But I'd like to take a little bit to like not mince words with everyone in SGA. Like, these decreases are going to like hurt. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I want to mentally prepare you all for next week. If you vote yes on this budget adjustment legislation, you are voting yes on positions being terminated. And I think that that's really important, that you know like how serious this is and like how like important this process is. We like implore you to ask questions, to get in touch with us, to go to privilege fee. Again, these are some of the biggest and most drastic changes that like student government has ever had to make, and like over like as long as like student government's been around. Like, we're being faced with an incredible challenge, and I want to make sure that you all are giving this process some really due diligence. There are a couple other changes that we recommended in the budget to contracts for flexibility, and we also recommended amending the insufficient funds process just to give us the right to do this tier process. That's technically something that wasn't clarified beforehand, so now we're doing it. But with that, I sped through this super quickly. This is something that like I can tell you I've spent like dozens of hours on already within the past week. And so Madison, Tel, and myself would like to take any questions that you all have right now. Anything you want to know at all, please ask at this time. We want to make sure that everyone is like fully informed on this process. We'd be happy to explain our reasoning for any decision in more depth. We'd just love to discuss this all right now. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions and take any that you might have. Senator Levi.
I realize this may not be a metric that you were tracking when you were going through all this data, but just staff loss, faculty and students both included, what would be the net job loss, like as a percentage, if we pass this?
Yeah, so there's no like specific number because some entities didn't provide us with as specifics. For example, student design services very clearly said that like 3 positions would be lost. Lafine told us that it would either be like a reduction of hours or positions or potentially a combination. I think that most of like the positions that'll be terminated will be student positions. I don't think there's any like full-time staff positions that are being eliminated in this legislation, which I'd personally say was really important to myself that we weren't terminating someone who like in the middle of a pandemic. As far as I'm aware at this time, we avoided those impacts with the proposed budget that we have, but I don't have a specific number for you, I'm sorry, on like the specific number of students that'll be lost. But even if it's not just positions, there will be a number of hours and opportunities as well that will be lost. And yes, your follow-up's granted.
And that makes sense that it'd be mostly students affected, but just as a student employee, would we be eligible for unemployment, or would it be more wise for students in that position to seek emergency funds through the school?
That is an excellent question. I think it would probably depend on any individual's circumstances. There's a lot of like financial resources available on campus right now. I know like K-State Proud, for example, has given out more like of their opportunity awards than usual because so many students have applied for it. So I'd probably push people into that. I could look for some financial resources. That's not been the side of this conversation that I've like really been thinking about at this moment, but I really appreciate you bringing this up. And I want to look into that. So hopefully we have something prepared in the coming weeks to be able to provide students.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about the proposed budget, about the process, about any entity in particular? Caucus Leader Phillips.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. So I was just curious, there's a couple of entities on there that received a 0% decrease. I was just wondering if you could touch a little bit on those again about why they specifically received that.
Yeah, Madison, can I turn that over to you to answer?
Of course. So one of the entities that received a 0% decrease is going to be Union Operations. As discussed a little bit in the presentation, Union Operations is receiving a pretty big hit this year just because of loss of revenue. They have a lot of decreased foot traffic. But also one of the things that we did through some discussions with Mr. Williamson, who's the director of the K-State Student Union, is obviously everyone is taking a large hit of these decreases. And so we actually kind of viewed the K-State Student Union along with their like sub entities as a whole. So that includes Campus Entertainment Fund, Student Design Center, Union Program Council, as well as there's a R&R. There's an R&R account for the union and then an R&R replacement account for the union. So one of the reasons that Union Operations is receiving a 0% decrease is because we went harsher in those other areas to try and make up for that 0% decrease in the union. So that's one area, as well as multicultural student organizations also received a 0% decrease. The reason for this is because in previous years, the Privilege Fee Committee has chosen to have their $14,000 allocation actually come from a reserve account. So that means that it's not a part of the active Privilege Fee budget right now and would not really be affected through this process because it's money coming out of reserves. Did that answer your question?
Caucus Leader Phillips, your follow-up is granted.
Yeah, you did. Thanks, Madison. Another question that I had was, I know you kind of mentioned during the presentation about reaching out to a couple entities again for like second follow-up meetings. I was just curious if you could explain a little bit of what went into that and how the numbers changed from the first meeting to the second.
Yes, in terms of like the big three.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so if you guys have been kind of following the conversation, we actually pushed this process back a week because we had gone through an initial recommended budget and then got some updated projections on what our deficit was going to look like, and it was a little bit larger than expected. So we actually ended up pushing back this presentation, sending you guys the recommended budget because we had to take a second look at things. So there are two main entities that we focused on in that second look. One is going to be recreational services. So we initially decided on a 5% decrease, and then along with help and discussions from administration, discussed with the recreation centers that they could give up an additional $200,000. So that's one of the areas why rec is at a 19% decrease. Obviously, that's a very large amount, but that's something that was kind of come to through some difficult discussions with Steve Martini, the director of the recreation services. So that's one area that we had additional conversations and looked at a little bit harsher, as well as Lafine. So I'll wait for Nate to get to the slide, but Student Health, which is Lafine Center, they are going to be receiving a 1% decrease, as well as a 1% decrease is what we recommended. And then after further discussions, because we did find out that the deficit was going to be a little bit larger than expected, they also were able to find an additional $160,000 that they're going to be able to cover from savings, additional service revenues, and reduced worker hours. So kind of the reason that we've been framing it this way is because we wanted everyone to be aware of the conversations that we had and how we came to these conclusions. But if you're looking at the rec, they will, or if you're looking at Lafine, they will be receiving, I want to say the 56 plus 160 is like 212. So they'll be receiving a callback / decrease of $212,000, which is around 3.9%. So overall, they'll still be receiving those two decreases combined, but we just wanted to give you an idea of the initial conversation that was had, and then the further conversations that kind of give some more context to why we have those additional decreases.
It looks like time for questions has expired. There's an additional question in the chat I haven't called on. Chair Colburn has moved to extend time by 10 minutes. I'm going to assume that's a second from Caucus Leader Phillips. Just a 2. So are there any objections to extending time for questions by more than 10 minutes? Seeing none. Chair Colburn, I see that you had the next question.
Yeah, Nathan, you briefly mentioned like voting on this next week. I know this isn't in an introduction right now. Can you kind of talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously it has to like happen, but typically, as everyone should know by now, legislation takes 2 weeks. The first week it's just read an introduction, and then it's voted on it second week. There's no bill associated with this on the agenda tonight. And that's because we actually just presented it to the Privilege Fee Committee for the first time at their special meeting tonight at 5:30. Legislation has to be submitted by a Monday to get on the agenda for the week. So we'll be submitting this. Hopefully the Privilege Fee Committee approves of it by next Monday evening, so we can get it on the agenda for next Thursday's Student Senate meeting. At that meeting on Thursday, our intention is to have someone make a motion to special order it. A motion to special order means that something will be introduced and debated and voted on all in the same evening. That motion does require a 2/3 majority to pass. So, I mean, this body could vote that motion down. However, I think it would be in our best interest to pass it early, simply to give NC directors more time to process these budget cuts. There's actually a deadline of December 1st is when they have to return these funds to us. So the sooner the advance notice they get, the better. Obviously, like, you all could vote against it if you think that this should take more time. Madison's shaking her head. She hopes that we don't do that, but that's also part of our reason why we're presenting everything in such detail tonight as well. So you have the opportunity to ask questions before, like, a week beforehand. So have your time to like make your mind up, ask questions, attend a meeting, etc. Before it's hopefully voted on next week.
I didn't put this in the chat, but I also have a few more things, but
Yeah.
someone else can go, they're kind of unrelated.
You can follow up right now.
Okay, just so that they're like documented, I had a couple just friendly amendments. I believe on line 80 for the reduction, the expected reduction in privilege fee, it says like 2 million or 3 million or something. I believe that's up to 4 now, as is in the PowerPoint. And then also related, line 42 says what you're like hoping to cut it by, or maybe that was vice versa, however I mentioned it, but it's 42 and 84. And that still is at 1 to 1.5, and we're at 2. So
Yeah, if you want to email those to us, since this technically isn't in introduction, it's not even like amendment time yet. So you can just email us because we haven't introduced it yet. So we can just put those in already and we don't have to go through any formal process.
Cool. And then my last question is just how, if at all, do you foresee some of these numbers changing? This is probably more of a question for Madison or others on privilege fee. Like, is there any, like, is this what it's going to be, just like the process, or is privilege fee like looking to change some of those numbers around? Like, what can I as a student senator expect to see different on the agenda on Monday?
Before Madison goes, I just want to, I'm going to jump in and give you like the procedural parts. So since this hasn't been introduced yet, we could still make any changes that we want at this time. The privilege fee committee may make amendments in committee, any that they so choose. So if you feel strongly about any parts of this, I would recommend that you go to the privilege fee committee meeting next Monday at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom, because that's where motions can be made, even if you're not a voting member of that committee. If you want to like give input and like debate some stuff, I'd recommend you go there. Additionally, if this is on the floor next week, if it passes a motion to special order, any student senator can introduce an amendment on the floor if they so choose. And so that is simply like, you have to have that typed out and written out. I will make sure next week with the first draft of the agenda, since there's potential to change this, that the amendment template is included, so people know what to do there. And then Madison, if you want to talk about any expectations that you see based off your committee's discussion, you can share those now.
Yeah, so definitely we had a little bit of time to discuss, so nothing solid, but I will be reaching out to a few entities to look at possible additional information. The committee did discuss that there are a few areas that they would be interested in discussing additional cuts. So some of those that we're looking at are possibly Wildcat Watch, Collegian, SDS, UPC, SGA, and I will be reaching out to counseling services, SDS, and the care office to talk about, like, to ask more information on their utilization numbers. But nothing has been set in stone, but there is a possibility that some of these numbers will change.
Are there any further questions about this presentation process at all right now? I believe I'm caught up on everyone in the chat. Caucus Leader Carlson.
Yeah, I just have a question about the SGA cuts. I know that we're kind of bound with I cannot remember the name of the
JCOC.
JCOC, thank you. Yes, I was like, it's a weird acronym. I know we're kind of bound with JCOC to pay people like certain amounts based on their position, but is there a way? I'm just wondering, like, is there any possible way for us to cut ourselves more, or are we kind of just in like a sticky situation with that?
Yeah, so I can tell you that as of right now, our recommendation essentially decreases like all fluff out of the budget. The vast majority of the SGA budget is compensation for positions. So for anyone who's not aware, like, I am compensated for my work in SGA. I believe there's 12 to 15 different positions that are. Those are amounts that this body actually approves and can only be altered through like another committee's report. I think the whole purpose of that is so, like, I can't just introduce a bill to change my own pay this year or something like that, which is what Caucus Leader Carlson is referring to in terms of bound. Like, our hands are kind of tied there. We haven't fully explored everything there. So yes, it's kind of weird. And we don't exactly have like an answer on that part. The other part of our budget, we have two other parts though that we are required to pay for. SGA pays for internal auditing of every other privilege fee entity. So about $20,000 of our $80,000 budget is actually spent on auditing everyone else. And then also our election system each year takes about $5,000 to maintain our agreement with IT. So that's about another $5,000. So in terms of SGA, I would say that Madison Tell and I made the decision to cut all the fluff out of our budget immediately. I think that that's something that the Privilege Fee Committee is probably going to work through and potentially look at alternative ideas or possibilities there. And yeah, I'd love to take your follow-up right now.
Yeah, so I guess like I completely understand like why we're having this issue with JCOC and like why we can't cut ourselves more, but I am a little bit concerned about the public perception of it when this all comes out and people see that SGA is only cutting themselves by 6% and we're cutting a bunch of other entities by way larger amounts than that. And although that those of us who are in the Zoom call probably understand the reasoning and the problems with having JCOC and everything like that, I just don't think that the regular student body is going to understand that. So I don't necessarily know the answer. That's why I said it was a comment. But like, I do think it's something that we need to think about a lot because it could end up being really bad, I think, for all of us just in general.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you sharing that. I would tell you that that was a comment that weighed on my mind, like similar thoughts weighed on my mind as well, as we were dealing with everything. So particularly after the spring when we didn't cut ourselves at all. I can tell you that I definitely was on the, like, definitely more of the cut side. I would definitely tell you, yeah, I want to look into that a little bit more over the weekend. I'm not exactly sure what everything is possible there. So I might ask and see a little bit. This is all kind of new territory that we're working through too. So there's not a lot of like precedent to look back at either in terms of like how to modify JCOC and stuff like that. So we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants. But I'm certain that it looks like Madison has a comment, so I'll let her go.
Yes, this is just you asked a little bit about like SGA information. This is for SGA, but also all of the entities. Every entity submitted an impact statement. So if you're interested in viewing those are on Org Central under like documents, privilege fee, and there's a file that says fall impact statements. So if you're interested in like looking to see kind of what the entities talked about on their end, definitely feel free to go check those out.
Yeah, thank you for that, Madison. Are there any for interim coordinator Heatherman actually brought up, were the bylaws amended to allow JCOC to meet out of cycle at the request of privilege fee, which technically she's asking a question she knows the answer to because yes, because I'm the one that wrote that. I think there's some stuff that we could explore there as well. So yes, the JCOC can meet. It's just that they would have to meet at authorization of the privilege fee. I think the one other concern we have is the timeline with that in terms of things. It looks like time for questions has expired. I believe we're all caught up in the chat. I'll seek a motion if someone still has a question to ask, and if not, we can continue on with our agenda. Seeing no more motions to extend, we'll continue on with our meeting agenda for the night. Thank you all. Again, I want to stress that if you have any additional questions, email Madison, email me, email Tell. You can go to privilege fee next Monday. We'd love to have you attend. We'll be discussing this in Senate next week too, so this isn't going away. So with that, I thank you all for your questions and engagement right now. We'll now be moving on with the agenda. After director's reports, we don't have any college caucus time tonight, and we actually have no minor allocations or final action. And we additionally don't have any minor allocations to introduce. So I'll now seek a motion to consider Bill 13. Is there a motion to consider Bill 13? Moved by Chair Booz, seconded by Senator Croslow. With that, will the author of Bill 13 please come forward?
All right, can y'all hear me? Awesome. Give me 1 second.
Very quietly.
Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association should continue to promote accessibility in its elections, whereas Chapter 01-0109, Section E2 of the KSU SGA statutes currently states that there must be an organized meeting that individuals running for an office in KSU SGA must attend. Whereas the KSU SGA 2019-2020 elections report cited a violation by 11 individuals who were unable to attend the meeting, therefore removing their names from the ballot. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has limited access to campus facilities to large gatherings at necessary meeting spaces. Whereas the COVID-19 response measures have an indefinite timeline, making it difficult to predict when holding large meetings will be possible, and whereas allowing candidates to watch a video and verify understanding of the contents instead of attending a synchronous meeting will provide more accessibility for KSU, SGA, and candidates. Being enacted that Section 1, Chapter 01-0109, Section E2 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statute shall read as follows. Each general election candidate, except candidates for GSC offices, shall attend one of at least 2 mandatory meetings or shall view an informational video or transcript of the video prepared by the Elections Committee by 5 p.m. on the Tuesday, 1 week prior to the general election as specified by the Elections Commissioner. Candidate may be excused from this requirement only if the candidate has received written permission from the Elections Commissioner prior to the last scheduled meeting, and this legislation shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author?
We missed this, but line 27 should be governing instead of government.
Yes, that's Bill 13. Thank you, Andrew. Are there any additional questions or corrections for the author about this bill? Seeing none, thanks so much, Michael, for presenting on this. Next, we'll move into Resolution 26. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 26? Moved by Senator Wells. Can I get a second from Chair Booz? With that, will the author of Resolution 26 please come forward?
Just before I begin, just a couple quick changes. Caucus Leader Carlson needs to be added to the author line, and line 44 says Section 2 and it should be Section 4. So I'm going to read those changes, but just so you all are aware. So Resolution 2021-26, recommendation for Spring Wellbeing Days by Maggie Bowman, Andrew Booz, Madison Brown, Bryn Carlson, Lily Colburn, Lane Lundeen, Blake Phillips, and Tel Whitmer. Whereas unique circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic have required flexibility and changes to our typical semester. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association respects the need to limit travel due to spreading of COVID-19. Whereas on September 8th, 2020, KSU Faculty Senate passed a revision to the 2020-2021 academic calendar, resulting in classes beginning January 25th, 2021 and ending May 14th, 2021 without a traditional spring break. Whereas this calendar attempts to compensate for the loss of spring break by adding 1 extra week to winter break. Whereas the change to 16 weeks of uninterrupted instruction in which students will experience increased mental stress with a lack of time off from instruction. Whereas there is room in this calendar to allow for fewer days of instruction. Whereas in announcements sent to the entire student body on September 11th, 2020, Provost Chuck Tabor and Vice President for Enrollment Management, Dr. Karen Goose, stated that they would work with KSU SGA to identify 2 separate days to designate as well-being days when classes would not meet. And whereas taking 1 day off in the middle of a class week does not provide adequate time for students, faculty, and staff to refocus and recharge. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association recommends the 2 allotted well-being days be placed on a Monday or a Friday to allow 3 consecutive days of reprise from instruction. Section 2, KSU SGA recommends the well-being days be placed in the weeks of February 22nd to February 26th and April 5th through 9th to create even sections of instruction. Section 3, KSU SGA asks all students to stay on campus during these brief breaks to prevent further spread of COVID-19. And Section 4, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Vice President for Enrollment Management, Dr. Karen Goose, Dean of Students and Vice President for Student Life, Dr. Thomas Lane, Faculty Senate President, Dr. Mindy Markham, University Registrar, Dr. Kelly Brundage, Provost and Executive Vice President Chuck Tabor, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Before I ask for any questions or corrections, I have two as well. It's vice provost for enrollment management, not vice president at the two times it's mentioned. And then, are we comfortable saying Charles Tabor instead of Chuck Tabor? I know this is his nickname, but we should probably change that.
I know he only refers to himself as Chuck Tabor on the website, but Charles sounds good to me. Also, I assume there should be a doctor not mentioned anywhere on the website as Dr. Charles Tabor, but sounds good to me.
Okay, we'll get those two. And it looks like Chair Rodriguez, do you have questions or corrections?
Yeah, could I be added as an author too?
You sure can. Are there any other questions or corrections? Chair Booz has a question.
Yeah, today we got an email from one particular person about that the open house may interfere with the April dates. Were we thinking of changing that, or just recommending something around there, or I don't know?
Yeah, sorry. So I kind of thought about this, and I had a few different courses of action in my mind. One was we are considering special ordering this resolution tonight, so that will probably happen. And so I figured that there was time for an amendment in that moment. Also, if I'm being quite honest with everyone, I don't fully expect that university administrators will follow our wishes and put these days off on a Monday or a Friday. And so I think that having a Wednesday off during the week of open house probably is not the biggest deal in the world. Another factor in my mind was if we have university open house on a day that we have school off, I think that might actually be incentive to keep more students in Manhattan rather than going on some break or going to visit family and potentially spreading COVID. So I kind of think it makes sense just to keep it in those weeks as our recommendation. If the provost and people who make higher decisions about that would like to change it to a different week, this in no way binds them to these weeks. I think the most important piece for me in that section is the fact that these breaks should be equally spread out. They're currently about at the 5/6 week mark. We go 5 weeks, a break, 6 weeks, a break, So I think that's kind of the most important intent. And if they keep them roughly even, then I would be happy with that.
One other thing that I want to add, since I'm the one who received that email today, is that there was it was brought up to us that open house would be that same day, but during the presentation we just gave, we're currently making a recommendation to cut 100% of open house's funding as well. So I'm also wondering whether or not that event will still happen due to COVID anyways. So in my perspective, I don't know how big a factor that should be when making this decision.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any further questions or corrections on this resolution?
I move that we suspend the rules in Special Order Resolution 26.
Chair Brown has moved to Special Order Resolution 26. For clarification, this is what I was mentioning earlier, and it has been seconded. So a motion to special order. Actually, Michael, is there a debate on a motion to special order? Okay, there is. Thanks, Michael. That's why I have him in the same room as me. So yes, so Chair Brown, you actually get first right to debate now on your motion to special order, why you think that this should be voted on tonight instead of being sent to a committee.
Hi, everyone. So I really love this resolution, and I think that as we are receiving more information on things such as open house and administration is having these conversations on when fall break should happen, we should come with a strong opinion and come with it fast. And so that's one of the reasons why I want to special order this piece of legislation. I think that it shows that this is a priority to us, as well as I would like this to be sent to administration ASAP, because I would hate for them to say, oh, well, if you'd mentioned this a little bit earlier, maybe it could have been included in our conversations. I think it's a really great bill that supports things for students, and waiting a week isn't going to diminish the power and voice that we have. I now yield my time.
Are there any questions for Chair Brown about her debate? Seeing none, I'll now seek any debate in the negative on the resolution to special order. So I'm looking for any debate in the negative on whether or not we should vote on this bill tonight. So I'll seek any debate in the negative. Seeing none, I'll seek any additional debate in the positive. It looks like Chair Colburn has debate in the positive.
Yeah, so I of course agree with everything Chair Brown said. I just wanted to also quickly mention there is actually a deadline that we're kind of working up to. So tomorrow morning there's a university calendar committee meeting. So this is the group that comes up with the preliminary recommendations for the calendar. While it's not necessarily guaranteed that they're going to discuss like when these well-being days will be, President Whitmer and Vice President Lundeen both serve on this committee, and I think regardless, it's really important that they're able to talk about this topic and this issue with the people who will probably have a say in this decision, if not like the ultimate say in this decision that will be made. And I think it'd look even better if they can come with like a certified approved piece of legislation rather than just saying like, oh, we're doing this, and rather be dismissed and saying, well, it might not pass or something like that. I think it just looked really great if we can have like a certified piece of legislation to give them, or not. If you don't want to vote for it, that's cool too. That's debate for another moment. But yeah, I think tomorrow morning is also just a specific deadline that we're running up against.
Are there any questions for Chair Colburn about her debate? Seeing none, is there any additional debate in the negative?
Point of parliamentary procedure.
Yes.
Is it, so Parliamentarian Arnold just put 36 votes. Is it 2/3 of the people like abstentions and that like are implied to be a no vote on that? That I don't believe that to be the case. Which one is correct?
Sorry, I couldn't really hear you. Can you repeat your question?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I had a hard time phrasing it, but it has to be 2/3 of the people that vote yes or no, not 2/3 of the people that are here, correct?
I believe that you are correct on that. I think
Okay.
Parliamentarian Arnold is he's calculating out of the number of senators that we know are present right now.
So it's actually a different amount if some people abstain, because that is not a vote either way.
Yeah. Yes, you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional, sorry, thanks for the question on parliamentary procedure. Is there any debate in the negative on the motion to special order? Is there any additional debate in the positive on the motion to special order? Is there any additional debate at all? Seeing none, we will now proceed into a vote on the motion to special order. For this vote, we won't be doing a roll call. Instead, we will just be using the yes or no button features that are in the participants window. So if you are a voting member of Student Senate, I would ask that you now go in and vote yes or no right now. Because Chair Booth clarified, and thank you for that, I'll double check any abstentions afterwards. And then depending on the vote total, that'll tell us what we need. If you are a proxy, you may also DM me your proxy's vote. So I'll add that to the overall total. So I'll give it just a few more moments. So please indicate yes or no right now if you would like to special order this. If you need any help finding that window as well, please let me know. Sorry, so I'm getting a couple questions. The window, if you click on the participants tab, you should get a window with the list of participants, and at the bottom it should have yes, no, and then a few other reactions. So you should be able to go in and just click yes or no. I actually get a running total of what those are right now, so I can see them all. And then I also got a question about who's a voting member, which is an excellent question, actually. If you're a student senator, you have full voting rights. So it's student senators, caucus leaders, and committee chairs. And so we're just going to verify that. So thank you for both of those questions. We're going to take just a second to verify that everyone who voted is a voting member, and then I'll get right back to you with the total. Okay, so I'm now clearing all votes. I had 48 votes in the positive to special order this. I want to indicate again any option to abstain just in case there is one. So if you'd like to abstain, please hit the yes button right now. And I have 2 abstentions. So the motion to special order definitely passes by a vote of 48 to 0 to 2. So with that, we are actually going to proceed into final action on Resolution 26 immediately right now. So with that, the author has first right to debate. So the author of this legislation, you're up.
Yeah, so hi again, everyone. Thanks for giving us practice for next week if we have to do it for Privilege B. So I just wanted to start off my debate just by giving maybe a little bit of context for what I feel most strongly about and what is most important to this resolution is having these 3-day weekends. I know that there's a great cause or a great reason to not have 3-day weekends in that there will be student travel. That's the whole point of removing a traditional spring break in the middle of the semester is prevent student travel to decrease the spread of COVID. As someone from Manhattan, this is a really important piece to me. The idea that we're putting anyone at risk by holding classes on campus at all was really frustrating to me and very concerning to me at the beginning of the semester and still is now. I'm from Manhattan. My parents still live like a quarter mile away from campus. I worry every single day that a student who my parents come into contact with through work or through a community event could unknowingly have COVID because of different activities they participate in. And that they could get sick. So the idea that we would be spreading COVID and that this creates an increased risk is really important to me. And it's something that certainly weighs heavily on my heart. But at the same time, another thing that weighs really heavy for me is the mental toll that this semester has had. I think we all can understand and can empathize with everyone's increased anxiety and stress and just levels of depression that we're seeing this year. And I think that if next semester we have no substantial break, which it looks like we might not have at this point, it's going to be really hard. Sorry, it's been emotional. So yeah, with that, I think that kind of makes the case. Thank you so much for considering your yes vote. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Chair Colburn right now? Seeing none, I will now seek any debate in the negative on this resolution. Is there any debate in the negative on Resolution 26? Seeing none, is there any additional debate in the positive on Resolution 26? Is there any additional debate at all on Resolution 26? Seeing none, we will now proceed directly into a vote on this. Since this is a resolution, we do not have to do a roll call vote immediately. And since it's been working so well, we're just going to use the button feature again. So right now, I'd ask that if you're voting yes or no on Resolution 26, please go in and hit the yes or no button again. And then we'll just verify the results really quickly. So I ask that you all do that. And then yes, proxies. Please send me your yes votes as well. I'm just going to keep a tally. Your votes right now, yes, no, abstain, right now over proxy. There's a couple senators right now that haven't voted. Sorry, I just want to do like one last call really quickly just to make sure. With that, I had 44 votes in the positive with 3 proxy votes and 41 yes votes. I'm going to clear, and then if you'd like to abstain on this, please also indicate so via the yes button at this time. And so I have 2 votes abstaining. So with that, Resolution 26 will pass 44 to 0 to 2. And so just so everyone knows, we are planning on certifying this tonight so it can be sent to administrators tomorrow morning as well. So thank you all for your votes on this. Resolution 26 is now approved. With that, we have now exhausted our agenda of all legislative items. So we have now moved into second open period for this evening. Are there any speakers for second open period tonight? Speaker Pro Tempore Billman, you may have the floor.
Hello, everyone. It is everybody's favorite time of week, which is Senate shout-outs. I actually just assumed that. I don't know if it's your actual favorite time of week. Let's see here. Oh, tonight we have 12 responses, so that's exciting. Chair Brown and the rest of, oh, if you want to turn your video on, please do. Chair Brown and the rest of the Privy Committee for their hard work during these past weeks. Shout out to Ashley Grills for getting published in 8 different newspapers with like a little greater than 3 heart. Oh, Ashley Grills, will you be my boo this Halloween? Shout out to Madison Brown for being the GOAT. Nathan Bothwell for always being a supportive and great friend. For Vice President Lundeen for being absolutely amazing. This one's to Madison, Nathan, and Tell. Thanks for moving heaven and earth to cut $2 million from the privilege fee budget. Someone did a shout out to me for being the nicest human. Thanks, guys. Shout out to Amy Lee because she doesn't get enough credit. That is facts. Lily, you rock. This one's also to Lily for being unafraid to get emotional during her debate. This is an emotional subject and an emotional year. Yeah, definitely so. Thank you all so much for being vulnerable. Okay, this one's gross. It says Broncos are tied 10-10 with the Jets. Hashtag Orange Crush. I don't like the Broncos, so I'm sorry that I read that. With that, that concludes Senate shoutouts for the week. Thank you, everyone.
Big shout out to everyone in SGA right now who's putting in some hard work. We really appreciate everything that you do. With that, are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Seeing none, we will now move into our second roll call for the night. So Speaker Pro Tem Billman is going to take it away with one last roll call.
Woohoo! Oh, sorry, that was awkward. I echoed. Okay, Atchison.
Here.
Bain.
Here.
Booz.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Bruce. Brummett. Bruna. Burke. Carlson.
Here.
Carr.
Here.
Clements.
Here.
Colburn.
Here.
Crosslow. Oh, thank you. De Santiago. Diaz de Leon.
Here.
Delavu.
Here.
Doc.
Here.
Fox. Thank you. Frederick. Thank you. Garrett. Glasscock.
Here.
Grills.
Here.
Romas.
Here.
Hamlin. Here. Harmon.
Here.
Hurd.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Hutchings.
Here.
Jambunathan.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Levi.
Here.
Manners.
Here.
McVeigh. Muthukumar. Thank you. Norwood. Or sorry, Knoll.
Here.
Thank you. Norwood. Nunk.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Fenikatu.
Here.
Richenberg.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Rossi.
Here.
Shunjay.
Here.
Snyder Ben.
Here.
Snyder Blaine.
Here.
Vance.
Here.
Vogelmore.
Here.
Wallace.
Here.
Ward. Wells.
Here.
Wilcox.
Here.
Willis.
Here.
And Windholtz.
Here.
Okay, and then I had some messages that McVeigh is here and Brummett is also here. I'm sorry, Nathan, what? Oh, thank you, Ward is also here. Let me just get that fixed really quickly. All right, with that, we have 46 senators present, 4 excused, and 6 absent. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around.
Awesome. With that, I will now seek a motion to adjourn. Can I get, Caucus Leader Kidd has moved to adjourn until next week, same time, same virtual place. And that has been seconded by Senator Croslow. Are there any objections? Seeing none, I will see you all next week. I hope you all have a good night and a lovely weekend.